Okay, so I want to talk about money. I want to talk about specifically profitability because
Mhm.
the thing that we see when we're working with our clients and they're charging great rates, they know what they're offering, like all of that feels good, and yet at the end of every month they still feel like they're like living client to client, like paycheck to paycheck, right? That same feeling of scarcity, of feast or famine, of oh shit, I need the clients to come in or it's not going to pay the bills. And coming from having felt that before in an established business, I at least absolutely felt this doesn't feel fair. I've worked really hard and I've built something really great to still feel this feeling. And why is that happening? And ultimately, what it comes down to is the thing that you're actually delivering profitable? And if you don't know the answer to that, not just, well, I charge this, so yeah, do you know what it actually cost for you and your company to deliver that thing?
Mhm.
Want to unpack it?
Yeah. So this is more than just ultimately your bottom line. Because the interesting thing about profitability is if you're looking at a business holistically, you could still be earning a profit as a business and have one service or offer that is like really eating into your profit.
Yep. Yep.
And if you're not willing to analyze on an individual product or service basis, then you can kind of get in trouble. And so, a big part of what I love that we do inside the incubator is we help you kind of break down your previous offers and how much of the business they ultimately made up. I want you to also consider, in that same frame of reference, how much did they make up in terms of revenue, but how much did
Mhm.
they cost you and your
Yes.
company?
That is the core of what we're discussing today. You not knowing what things cost you is critical in you being able to scale in a way that's sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I have this quote from a Harvard Business Review, and I'm quoting them just because I think this is the reality that a lot of established service based business owners need to hear, because this way of pricing and selling is absolutely incredible to do as you're starting and you're growing. And it's really easy to hang on to once you're established, but there is a major sacrifice that you're making by continuing to offer it. So, Harvard Business Review said the classic approach to funding, meaning paying for the service that you offer, because ultimately, and the reason why I like the word funding, I know I'm interrupting a quote with my own tangent, so I'll get back to it. But the way that a lot of the articles that I've been learning and reading about literally just calls it funding, right? I know the problem I want to solve. I know my service excellence, which if you don't know what that is, we covered that in part one. I know those things. I know the result I'm going to provide and the solution that I'm going to provide that's going to provide that result, right? Who pays for it then? Who pays for it? Because there are countless services out there that don't cost the customer a dime, but they pay for
Mhm.
it in other ways. There are services out there that cost the customer a shit ton of money and everything in between, right? I want you to remove all emotion from this part of the equation and literally talk about I have this commodity, who's going to pay for it? How is it going to get paid for? Because there are a lot of different ways that you can tackle that. But to go back to my quote, the classic approach to funding something of value is simply to have the customer pay for it, right? I have this thing, come buy it. But often it is possible to make that form of that payment take less objectionable or be less objectionable to customers, meaning they're not going to object about the price or the payment structure or whatever. There are ways to incorporate to make it less objectionable. Rarely is that done with a la carte pricing for the niceties. Rarely. And I say that to y'all because I know that that's so easy to offer, especially as your business has grown and your skill set has grown. And maybe you've gotten a couple of VAs or team members who can also offer things for your clients. Like, that's the easiest way to offer more without doing the work of figuring out what you really should offer.
Now, let's get into this example because I think this will kind of open up for you about what does it mean to like not Nikki nickel and diming people for those niceties, because I think what this will allude to is you're going to be like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
I should maybe not.
Hmm.
Anyway, let's do the example first.
Okay, so think about your experience at a coffee shop. I'm just going to use Starbucks as an example. You can trade in your best local place here if you want. You go in and you pay for the coffee. It's whatever price it is. Some places are more expensive than others, right? But in some places, like Starbucks, you can linger for literal hours from open to close if you wanted to. You can use their Wi Fi, their restrooms, the electricity to charge your computer. Heck, you can even get paid to be there if you're on the clock for your business. If you're there doing client work, if you're there running your business at Starbucks, you're getting paid to be there, right? How do you think that would change? How would your behavior would change? How would your expectations change? How would your feelings change if Starbucks all of a sudden charging a la carte for everything after your coffee?
The funny thing is, businesses used to do this.
Yeah. Do you remember paying for Wi-Fi?
Internet cafes?
Yeah.
Okay, you paid for coffee and you paid for your time on the internet using that electricity and using that Wi-Fi. But eventually people were like, this is just such a normal part of the experience.
This should be
Why
free.
should I have to pay for it? And so what do? They're not saying on the menu, and this is the key part here. They're
Mm-hmm.
not saying on the menu caramel macchiato plus
That's
Wi-Fi
Wi-Fi.
plus 2 hours access to the bathroom and my comfy seating area over here. They are
Mm-hmm.
literally just charging you for, well, they're not just charging you for the caramel macchiato. They are just saying you are paying exclusively for the caramel macchiato, but you're getting access to all these other luxuries or
Yep.
niceties, as Emily put them in that quote.
Niceties.
And so there are likely things in your packages, especially for your service, where you're like, I'm going to list all the things I'm doing. What parts of those things have just become so normal, common practice in the industry that you're in? And I think this
Mm-hmm.
varies by industry, that you
Yeah.
need to stop calling them out as special.
Mm-hmm.
And you, not that you don't need to include them in pricing, because we are absolutely going to be talking about that,
Get paid for it.
but you don't necessarily project that as included. It is
Mm-hmm.
just, it is either a surprise and delight moment where you get
Mm-hmm.
to really bonus out these clients that weren't expecting something, or it's something that's just such like a general business practice that you really have no business saying it's extra.
Specifically charging for, right?